Yeah, I know. The test audiences, they wanted her to end up with the cute boy. So they reshot everything, but you know what? I will forever be #TeamDucky. Even though he's a nerd. Ew. Welcome to Movies Revisited. I'm your host, Taylor James Johnson, and today we're gonna be looking at another teen movie. And I know you're like, oh no, not another teen movie, but yes, another one. And this one, it's one of the greatest. Mr. John Hughes took the teen comedy and elevated it to an art form, and he definitely did this when he wrote the screenplay Pretty in Pink, specifically for Molly Ringwald, and boy howdy does she shine alongside an ensemble cast. You got that nerd, Jon Cryer, he's one of those 2.5 men, and you got the cute dreamboat, oh my god, Andrew McCarthy, who she picks at the end because you always gotta go with the cute boy. Right? The cute boy who's also rich. Just saying. Come on, Molly. Look at the inner beauty of the guy who's probably gay. But yeah, the chemistry between all these characters, the screenplay, and just the charm that is Molly Ringwald. This was the last movie she did before she was like, I want to be a serious actress and work with Jean-Luc Godard. But you know what? She should have made more John Hughes movies. But now he's dead. So yeah, let's see what the great Matthew Hakunda has to say about Pretty in Pink.
Hello! This week, we're taking a look at Pretty in Pink, Hughes' final collaboration with teen queen Molly Ringwald. To boil the film down to its essence, it's basically Romeo and Juliet crossed with Cinderella as it examines love and social cliques within a high school setting. Pretty in Pink reunited producer Lauren Schuler Donner with Hughes, who had previously worked with him on Mr. Mom. The week after 16 Candles' wrap production, Hughes wrote the script for Pretty in Pink. According to Hughes, he hated to see these movies end, so the first thing he did when he was done was write another one. The film's title came from a song by the Psychedelic Furs, one of Ringwald's favorite bands, who had shared the song with Hughes. Pretty in Pink is sort of an outlier to me in John Hughes' teen flick series, since it's the only one not to take place in Chicago, Illinois, as the story is set in Los Angeles. Of course, what John Hughes teen flick would be complete without Molly Ringwald playing one of the lead roles? This time around, Ringwald plays Andy Walsh in the film, with the part being written specifically for her. At the time, the young star felt ready to move on from the high school set films to tackle more adult roles, and at first, didn't want to sign on for Pretty in Pink. Ringwald thought the character was too similar to herself, but felt that she had to do it because Hughes tailored the part specifically for her. So in her mind, if anyone else played the part, it would be like somebody else wearing her clothes, so to speak.
But I know if I don't do it, I'll just feel a lot worse.
Her reluctance rubbed Hughes the wrong way. Thankfully, director Howard Deutch stepped in to ease tensions.
Forget about it, man. It's not worth getting upset over.
And said the role must be played by Ringwald. Other actors considered for the role were Jodie Foster, Sarah Jessica Parker, Tatum O'Neal, and Lori Loughlin. Andy's father is played by the always reliable and sorely missed Harry Dean Stanton. Andrew McCarthy plays Blaine.
Blaine? His name is Blaine? Oh, that's a major appliance. That's not a name.
The rich but sensitive love interest for Ringwald's Andy. Charlie Sheen was the first actor Hughes considered for the role, since he was more in line with the square-jawed jock type that Hughes pictured. But Ringwald convinced the filmmakers to cast McCarthy instead, on the basis that she thought he was cute, and therefore Andy would think he was cute. Jon Cryer plays the one and only Philip F. Dale, aka Ducky. Hughes had also been keen to cast Anthony Michael Hall in the role, but he turned it down because he didn't want to be typecast and felt that the film was rehashing 16 Candles. Apparently, Hughes was shocked because Anthony felt like a son to him and didn't expect him to pass. After Hall rejected the part, Ringwald lobbied hard for Iron Man himself, Robert Downey Jr., to be cast in the role as Ducky, since she thought he was different and completely plausible that they could end up together. But the filmmakers went with Jon Cryer instead. Howard Deutch instantly loved Cryer's take on Ducky, but the rest of his co-stars didn't really like him. Cryer chalked it up to his outgoing nature, while Ringwald and McCarthy were more reserved. so the dynamic just didn't click. Which honestly kinda works for the film. This bit of casting would have a huge impact on the film's ending, but we'll get to that soon. The rest of the cast is rounded out with Annie Potts playing Iona, Andy's fickle boss and mentor, as well as James Spader playing the perfect asshole in the form of Steph McKee. Spader's audition was so memorable that Hughes convinced Deutch to hire the actor because he was that obnoxious during the first meeting. You hear that, kids? Sometimes it pays to be an asshole.
It's always fun playing the bad guy.
Lastly, comedian Andrew Dice Clay also has a cameo as the club's bouncer. The film was directed by Howard Deutch in his feature debut. He first got to know Hughes by editing trailers for movies like 16 Candles. Fun fact, he's the father of actor Zoe Deutch, a daughter he shares with his wife, Leah Thompson, who he met on the set of Some Kinda Wonderful, another Hughes project. According to Deutch, throughout the shoot, Ringwald and McCarthy were completely at odds. They hated each other because Ringwald had a crush on him, and he did not have a crush on her. In order to create sparks, he lied to Ringwald and said McCarthy did have a crush on her, but because he's a guy, he was afraid to show her.
Andy, is there something going on between you and
Blaine?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Deutch claims that the conflicted relationship added to the sexual tension and helped the whole sense of will they, won't they. I guess that's just how computers work, kids. For Ducky's standout dance sequence, Cryer worked with director and choreographer Kenny Ortega, who directed films later on such as Hocus Pocus and High School Musical, to put those killer dance moves together at the record store. The original song that Cryer picked for the scene was State of Shock by Mick Jagger and Michael Jackson, but the director thought the Michael Jackson portion was simply too ridiculous. So Deutch offered the Rolling Stones' Start Me Up as an alternative, but when they couldn't get the rights, they went with Otis Redding's Try a Little Tenderness. Deutch explained that he picked that specific track because it was a heartbreaking song that expressed how Ducky felt, how hurt he is, and how much he's in love with this woman. And the audience falls in love with him because we all related to that feeling of unrequited love. They filmed so many takes that Cryer said he tore through his Ducky shoes. While Ringwald loved pretty much everything she wore in the film, since it mirrored her own sense of style, the actor revealed that she hated that iconic pink prom dress. According to Ringwald, if she had her way, she would have burned the dress on the Paramount backlot as soon as they yelled the last cut. The costume designer, Marilyn Vance, who assembled the attire by piecing two different dresses together, admitted that she wasn't in love with it herself, but the character of Andy was so original that she needed a dress that exemplified her individuality. Vance also curated Ducky's entire wardrobe, which left Cryer wondering at first why the outfits had to be so goofy, until he realized that was Ducky's way of saying, "fuck you" to the world. Of course, there are fans out there who find the ending controversial and ponder, why doesn't Andy end up with Ducky, since more related to goofy underdog Ducky, as opposed to privileged dreamboat Blaine.
If you worship the duck, why don't you hang out somewhere he could get in?
Nice dice, man, hey!
And as a matter of fact, that was the original intention. The film was supposed to have Andy and Ducky dancing in front of the entire prom to signify them getting together at the end. However, test audiences booed this ending.
What is this shit?
Which really caught Hughes and Deutch by surprise.
But the girls in the audience didn't care about that. They wanted to get the cute guy. And so it was a big lesson for us, which is forget the politics. When a girl wants the cute guy, she's got to get the cute guy.
Which makes complete sense, since she was clearly not attracted to Ducky. Molly Ringwald had anticipated that audiences would be dissatisfied with the original ending, saying it didn't make sense to have the entire movie be this Cinderella story, yet she doesn't get to end up with the guy she wants. Plus, she wasn't really attracted to Jon Cryer. But who can blame her? His Ducky did come on a little too strong.
Oh, ladies, listen, I may be able to work out a deal where either one or the both of you could be pregnant by the holidays. What do you say?
During the shoot for the original ending, Ringwald was extremely sick and even fainted during a slow dance with Cryer. Cryer thought this was a bad omen, and represented how the film's original ending wouldn't work.
We'd be spinning and she'd be looking at me like, you know, and I was like, oh no, this is not gonna end well. This would be a bad ending for the movie. Pretty and projectile vomit.
Paramount execs were also apprehensive about the original ending, worried that it could be perceived as classist and suggesting that wealthy people and poor people should not interact. As a result, John Hughes wrote a new 5-page ending where Andy ends up with Blaine instead because he goes to the prom alone. This was shot in a single day several months after the original production wrapped, so when the actors were called back to film the new scene, Andrew McCarthy had lost weight and cut his hair for a stage play, so he was forced to don a wig for the reshoot. McCarthy said that if they had known we would still be talking about the movie years later, they would have paid for a better wig. Director Howard Deutch agreed that it was a horrible wig, and said it made him look like an axe murderer. Even though the wig was bad, McCarthy was relieved that the film had the fairy tale ending, since according to the actor, the original ending with Blaine being a spineless jerk made him want to quit the project altogether. To protect Ducky's character in the new ending, Hughes included a shot of another girl at the prom showing interest in him, played by Christy Swanson in her first theatrical role and officially credited as Duckette. But there are still legions of fans who won't rest until there's justice for Duckman. The original ending was meant to feature the orchestral maneuvers in the dark song, Goddess of Love, but since the ending was changed, Hughes felt that the new ending required a song with different lyrical content. Hughes asked OMD for a fresh song to match the feel of the ending. Oh, and this request came 2 days before the band were due to go on tour, which led to the song If You Leave being written and recorded in under 24 hours. Wow. Lyrically, the band has stated that the song represents the end of high school, the ending of your childhood, elaborating that they were trying to capture this fear of what comes next. If You Leave became an international hit itself and charted at number 4 on the Billboard Hot 100 in May 1986. Sadly, Paramount has stated that they have been unable to locate the footage of the original ending. Interestingly enough, the film was adapted into a novel, which was written before the last scene ultimately changed, so it contains the original ending, where Andy ends up with Ducky instead of Blaine. So that's better than nothing, I guess, right? Pretty in Pink held its premiere on January 29, 1986 at the Chinese Theater in Los Angeles. The following month, it was released nationwide on February 28, 1986. It was a box office success, making $40.5 million on a $9 million budget. It opened number 1 at the box office, and in the time since, the Brat Pack film has become a cult classic. The film's soundtrack has received critical acclaim as among the most brilliant in modern cinema. As with previous films by Hughes, Pretty in Pink featured a soundtrack mostly composed of new wave music. While director Howard Deutch originally intended the film to primarily contain score, Hughes influenced Deutch's decision to use music from Echo and the Bunnymen, New Order, The Smiths, and more throughout the film. Unfortunately, Otis Redding's Try a Little Tenderness, to which Ducky lip-syncs in the film, does not appear on the official soundtrack album. Hughes was personally unhappy with how Pretty in Pink's ending changed, so he decided to retell the same story, but with the genders of the main characters switched in Some Kind of Wonderful. Appropriately, that film was also directed by Howard Deutch, and Hughes had wanted Ringwald to star in it as well, but she refused. Hughes took it personally, so they never worked together again. Back in 2005, there were rumors swirling that a Pretty in Pink sequel was happening with the main cast set to reprise their roles. However, this turned out to be nothing more than an April Fool's hoax, to the dismay of fans everywhere.
Shut up! Why can't you accept it?
Never say never though, as Deutch has also gone on the record to say that there could be a sequel to the film, done under the right circumstances. He noted how nostalgic titles like Karate Kid have launched successful television series like Cobra Kai, and perhaps Pretty in Pink could follow a similar format to revisit these characters years later, but only time will tell. As we briefly mentioned, this was sadly the last collaboration between John Hughes and Molly Ringwald. With this being their last production together, I'd like to take a moment to highlight what Ringwald has been up to since parting ways with the iconic filmmaker. Ringwald would go on to star in several other movies in the 80s and 90s, one of which, Fresh Horses, would reunite Ringwald with McCarthy in a similar opposites-attracts plot, but without the staying power that Pretty in Pink possesses. In recent times, Ringwald plays Archie Andrews' mom on Riverdale, as well as a parental role in Netflix's teen rom-com franchise, The Kissing Booth. Before that, she starred on The Secret Life of the American Teenager, which lasted for 5 seasons, And if you watched our Breakfast Club episode, you'll know she also has a cameo in the parody film Not Another Teen Movie.
God, I can't believe you fell for that crap. That's from Pretty in Pink. Are you sure? Trust me.
Even if it doesn't reach the heights of Hughes' other films, Pretty in Pink still solidified itself as an iconic romantic comedy since it was first released in 1986. For that reason, I award the film 7 out of 10 Duckies. Something to note, to this day, Ringwald strongly believes that Ducky is gay, yet didn't know it at the time in the movie, but would have come out by now.
That's a beautiful theory.
She has also stated that Ducky was based on her best friend, who was gay and with whom she had an extremely non-romantic relationship.
I'll call ahead to the cafeteria and make a couple of reservations, 2 by the window.
Sure.
Well, no, you don't like to sit in the sun. Okay, something else.
There are definitely people who view the character as a gay icon, right up there with the Babadook. However, Cryer says he never quite saw him that way, and wanted the character to represent all the slightly effeminate dorks that are actually heterosexual. Regardless of your interpretation, Ringwald believes that while her character and Blaine probably didn't end up together in the long run, Andy and Ducky remain friends for life. And who knows, maybe one day, the original ending's footage will be found and Paramount would dispense justice by releasing the Ducky cut. But for now, we'll have to settle for the film that delivered one of the 80s most epic teen love triangles, a stellar soundtrack, and eye-catching outfits that would go on to define the decade and an entire generation. Pretty in Pink. As always, thanks for watching.
Thank you for clicking on our video, everybody. If you like what you saw here, please make sure you like the video and subscribe and share with your friends who like this sort of content. Joe Blow was created by movie fans for movie fans, and we appreciate your support.